and welcome back to The Sober Connection with me, Abi King. My guest today is somebody who is a recovery advocate, a podcaster, and someone who's very close to hitting 2,000 days alcohol-free. His story includes deep loss, serious illness, rehab during COVID, and a powerful reconnection with nature, particularly through daily hill walks through the Isle of Man that have ended up becoming a bit of a sober anchor for him. We've been meaning to chat for a while, so I'm excited to have this conversation with my guest today, the lovely Jimmy Thistle. Hello, Jimmy.
Hi, Abby. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for the great intro there. Yeah, it's awesome.
No worries. No, thank you for jumping on. It's been I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, so it's good to finally get that convo going. So
Absolutely.
so I just wanted to start off. So I normally just get my guests to basically just talk about their drinking career. How it started, and when you sort of realized that it was becoming a bit of a problem, and the steps that you took to try and get yourself sober five years ago. Hey, five plus years ago.
Five
Amazing.
years ago. Yeah, and that, coming up for 2,000 days, I think it's in like 20 something days or something.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You're sort of like 1970 or something at the moment, right?
1970 yesterday. Yeah, so it's like that whole crazy. Like getting up to, well, obviously all the goal, the milestones are amazing, but 1,000 days seems like yesterday now. Do you know what I mean? Because how many days and years?
I've just clicked over 1,400, so I'm coming up 4 years in March. Yeah.
That's awesome. But the time just flies, and it's like I was saying to someone the other day, I've no like. There's any time to get sober, but if I was to relapse now, and obviously God forbid, it would then be 50 if I was back to where I was now. Do you know what I mean? And I say there's nothing wrong with being 50 and being sober. Of course, that's amazing. But like, I don't want to be 50 and go back to, I want to be 50 and be like 10 years sober,
Yeah,
So it's, but this is what I say to a lot of people. It just adds up, if they're thinking they can't get a day or 2 days, and it's like, before you know it, it'll be 8 days a week, month, year. But so my childhood was great. Lived up in Scotland, just outside Glasgow. We had rolling fields next to us, and good group of friends and stuff like that. So my childhood was, no trauma to kind of speak of. My parents did split up when I was 6. But that, we, like I've always said, me and my brother, we never went without. We always had clothes on our back and food on the table, and heating in the house. But I grew up in the 90s, and there was just a whole kind of atmosphere of, we heard other kids kind of going and maybe drinking down at the park and all that, and I would say we were kind of geeky a wee bit, and we were like, that's a bit naughty and we can't do that. And then I'd had my parents had gone away, my brother was looking after me, and he was a few years older than me, and he'd gone to a few parties and stuff. So he was kind of in at their liquor cabinet, and he asked me, did I, because we were into similar music, and I think we were listening to some dance tunes or whatever, or maybe some Nirvana, because we were kind of eclectic in our music taste. And he was drinking, and I don't know whether I'd said to him, can I have one of them, or if he offered it to me. Do you know what I mean? That's a bit hazy, because I was 14, and he went and got me like a large vodka and orange, and I drank it. And I probably didn't really like the taste at first, but then there was orange juice. And I just loved it. I was like, maybe had like 2 or 3 of them. And like, I don't really remember the night, because I probably did have a bit of an initial blackout. But I went back into school, told my mates, and I was like, we need to do what all the other kids are doing, and kind of get some booze at the weekend. And we did, and that just kind of became our norm. Like, I'm not saying at the beginning it was every weekend, but it became quite a regular thing through my kind of teenage years. And I was saying in the podcast before, like the off switch wasn't there for me. It gave me this amazing confidence, this kind of different persona that I would kind of aspire to be. I don't know. I thought I was some kind of rock star, and all my idols were like either dead rock stars or drunk in a bin somewhere kind of rock stars, and I kind of idolized that. I was like, these guys are living, they're doing it right, and that was kind of my my ambition almost. Do you know what I mean? I had this stupid notation that or ideology that I was going to be part of the 27 Club, but I wasn't a rock star and I wasn't doing anything, but I just wanted to live this kind of crazy fast life. And it
Yeah.
wasn't long before little things like microdots and speeds and LSD started coming in. We started smoking weed quite early on, but like I've never. A lot of people say, oh, weed's the kind of gateway drug. Alcohol was the gateway drug for me,
Mm.
and weed was just this thing that we kind of did. During the day, maybe at school break time, we'd go and sit in cars and all that and do that. So that was never really an issue, I don't think. But the alcohol and the drugs at the weekend did kind of step up and become this kind of persona almost of me and my friends. But I think some of my friends knew their limits and they'd maybe, because I wasn't watching what other people was drinking, I was more concerned what I was, imbibing. And it was kind of like, well, um, I wouldn't think, oh, I'm going to have 5 pints tonight or I'm going to have 7 pints. I was just like, I would drink until, well, the thing was, I never really passed out. So
Yeah.
I'd be very drunk, but I wouldn't be like going, oh, I need to go home or I'm going to pass out in the corner or whatever. So that was kind of like I built up a tolerance and yeah, like I was drunk. I'm not saying I was wandering about not being, kind of inebriated. I totally was. But for me, it was get as drunk as possible.
Yeah.
And that was like, I'd go up to the bar, and we're talking like late teens, early 20s now. If I was waiting on people to finish their drinks, I would go to the bar to get a round in, and I'd be doing shots at the bar. So it was
Yeah.
almost secret drinking, even in a public arena. Like my
Mm.
friends, I would maybe go to the other side of the bar where they couldn't see me. So I was doing that from quite an early age. Um, Lost my license to drink driving when I was about 22.
Yeah.
But I took that as so I lost the job because I couldn't drive their forklift anymore because of the license thing. So I took that as a kind of like a blessing in disguise because then it took me to college to do photography, which I loved and I did really well at that. And then I got a good job out of that. But for the majority of my 20s, I wasn't pushing myself. I was just living a party scene. And if one group of friends weren't doing something that weekend, I would find another group. And it just kind of went on and on and on. So, did I know there was a problem at an early age? Yeah, probably. But I didn't know that it was a dangerous problem. I didn't know it was a health risk. I didn't know it was a
Mm.
poison. Like I thought maybe when I'm in my, 60s or 70s, I'll get cirrhosis or something. But there's people younger than me that I know that have died from cirrhosis because of this
Yeah.
disease, and
Yeah.
it's horrible. So, yeah, like lost the license, relationship breakups, loss of jobs, all massive red flags. But I just kind of ignored them, and I was like,
Mm.
yeah, that's everything else is someone else's problem. It's not mine. I'm doing my thing, and I'm living my life the way I want to live it. So, you know, to hell with everyone else.
Yeah.
But I did move around a lot. I moved, umpteen places all over the UK. Did live over here in the Isle of Man for 2 years with my brother, and it was down to I'd done a few silly things like go a bit AWOL. I ended up in Mallorca on a whim. I lost laptop, camera and stuff like that. So my family were concerned, and my brother said, "Why don't you come over here for a bit?" And that actually worked for maybe 6 months, a year. And I was doing healthy, and I was running, and my brother and me were getting on really well. And then my the company I was working for, I worked for a bank, and it was a work hard, play hard atmosphere, and I soon fell back into that because I was in my late 20s, and this went on again. Maybe through my 30s, I met I'd moved again because I moved back to London, and then that relationship was kind of fueled by partying, and London's a bit mad, but we ended up parting ways, and but again, that the whole thing of me losing jobs or not turning up to jobs, and just basically like everything in my life was that not even going out. It was just getting the drink.
Yeah.
That was the most important thing to me, even above relationships and things. So in my 30s, I ended up with in a bit of a codependent relationship. We were just as bad as each other, and we just constantly, like every night, was just a free for all. And that relationship went on for a number of years, really. When it probably shouldn't even have gone that far. I do still have one of the cats from that relationship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Poppy's 13 now, I think, or coming up for 13. So yeah, she's doing all right. But it was just pure madness. We ended up having a pub at one point, which got completely trashed one night. And yeah, and it was like, police showing up, but like I became numb to those types of things. When the police showed up that morning after I'd had this open mic night, she had gone AWOL, so it was just me behind the bar, and we lived above it. And I remember looking over at the bar at one point because there was just hundreds of people in this bar, and like there was people just behind the bar like pouring their own drinks, and there was you're not telling me there was money going in the till, but I just like kind of went,
Yeah.
this is what's happening. So obviously I got kicked out that bar. And I did have some stints of like, right, thinking, oh, I need to knock this in the head and really kind of knuckle down and start doing something with my life. And then maybe that would last for 2 weeks, a month or whatever. And then it would just grip me again. I think the longest I'd had sober since being 14 was, until obviously now, was just coming up for 3 months, and I didn't do the full 3 months, but it was just, even at that point, looking back, I wasn't, like, I didn't think I was ever going to stop drinking at that point. I thought, I'm going to do this for a little while, and there was
Yeah.
always this little devil on my shoulder saying, yeah, but you're going to drink again, but I did this 3 months, and, sadly, my grandfather died within that time, but it was nice to have that sober time with him,
Yeah.
because he'd seen the kind of carnage that I'd been causing in my life, and my whole family were just like, kind of wits end, despairing, like, what are you doing? And then I would try, and then I'd get in a new relationship, and things would start perking up, and I would get a new job, and the last relationship before I finally got sober was, it was about nearly 2 years, and she had a couple of kids, and we got pregnant quite quickly in that relationship. And I was like, oh, right, okay, this is, I don't have any kids of my own. And the night that I moved in, I started a new job, and we'd been seeing each other 3 months, and I was moving in and starting the new job on a Monday, I think, and we went out to the theatre, and she had a miscarriage that night. And it was, I mean, obviously it was absolutely devastating, definitely more so for her, but we should have definitely got some kind of counselling or whatever. But for me, I kind of saw that as a kind of green light, like, well,
Right.
if ever there's an excuse for me to drink, then this is definitely it.
Yeah.
And I didn't need an excuse, but it was like, oh, poor me, pour me a drink. And I'm not saying I wasn't devastated, of course I was, but I just kind of went completely kind of helter-skelter with that one. Didn't really, I think I kind of took the first kind of 4 days off that job, explained to them what was going on. So then I started doing, call it car drinking. So I would go, like, she was obviously devastated and she had some time off work, but I was heading to work, and then, like, all intentions, and then I would go and get myself like half bottle of vodka, and I'd go and sit in my car somewhere, and I'd just drink that. So I wasn't even getting pissed, but at this point I think I was in withdrawal, so I needed that kind of almost like a medicine, I suppose. And this kind of went on and off. I did have stints of 2 months, not 2 months, like 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. She knew there was an issue. I was hiding. Like, she never wanted to admit there was a big issue, I don't think, because then it would mean that we wouldn't have booze in the house. And she wasn't a massive drinker, but she did like a drink. So we were almost trying to find some other kind of, method of me cutting down or whatever, but it was never on the cards for me. I mean, looking back, yeah, I don't believe in moderation for certain people, and I'm definitely not one of them.
Yeah. Same.
So this kind of went on. As I say, we'd have some nice times and good times, but the majority of the time was always just tarnished with my drinking. Like, I was hiding vodka bottles behind the stem of the sink in the bathroom, in the cistern. I even went to put it in the we had like a row of cereal boxes for the kids, like Cheerios and I don't know, Cocoa Pops, but there was bran flakes. And one night I was in the kitchen and I think I heard her coming in, and I quickly dumped the bottle in the bran flakes. And then I realised that no one was going to touch the bran flakes. I didn't even touch the bran flakes, so it just stayed there, and that was like a new hiding place for me. So, it was because I just thought, well, the kids aren't going to go in there, and even if the kids had found it, they wouldn't have drank it. But I was always very conscious of like not like this is my secret thing, and this is when it got really really bad. So I'd have been about 38, 39, coming up on my 40th. I was deeply unhappy with this relationship, possibly because of my drinking as well, because as we know, it is a depressant. And I was just, I was lying. I didn't think I was being like super angry. Like I wasn't a violent drunk, but I was just belligerent and being not a nice person to have around. And I was blaming everything else. I was blaming the kids. I was blaming her. But as I said, we'd have some nice times, and then it would just, every time I went back to it, I would be like 10 to the dozen, So much so that in just after my 40th birthday, I decided to leave her. A friend of mine gave me like a kind of olive branch, so I went to live with him. He was about an hour away from her. But then quite quickly, he was like, well, I'm not happy with your drinking in my house, And then him, my parents, her, my brother and his partner were all kind of almost doing this like kind of intervention. This would have been 2020 around March time, so we had this kind of rumblings of a Chinese virus coming through, and eventually they all kind of colluded and got me into rehab. Now I was up for it. I was like, yeah, I know I need to do something about this because I'm just pissing everyone off and this isn't good for me. So I eventually got into the rehab place. 2 days later, the whole world kind of went into lockdown. So it was kind of a weird time.
Yeah.
Cut a long story short, I did my 28 days in there, came out, stayed with a friend because he didn't want me back in his house. She didn't want me back. And it turns out they'd never met each other before. But because I was doing all this, she went through to pick up my car because her car was broken. They kind of, well, I mean, he's a snake in the grass. He kind of took advantage of someone that was in a vulnerable position, in my opinion. And this is what she told me since. So they started having this little secret affair behind my back. Like I got this inkling that this was going on, we started sending them messages and all that. They were blocking me, saying, you're mad, you're blah, blah, blah. And then it turns out I was, my instincts were correct. So I did 55 days and then I found this out and I was like, well, I'll show them. It's like that old saying, what is it? Well, I can't remember what it is, but it's drinking poison to make other people in the room fall down dead. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
You can't, that's not, why are you drinking to show them? Anyway, so that kind of went on for a little while. I was up in Yorkshire, my parents were over here. The borders were locked, so we couldn't really I couldn't get over. Not that I really wanted to at that point, but my parents were like trying their hardest to kind of get me over here. They got an exemption. I did spend the night in a cell because he'd said that I was stalking and harassing him and he got me arrested. It's like, who doesn't send a few little angry messages to people when they're clearly, pissed off with someone for doing that behind their back. But anyway, so I did that and then I came over here. Did 2 weeks isolation at my parents' house, which was a cold turkey withdrawal, which I shouldn't have done because I'd done a medical detox in rehab because I needed it. Then I did a cold turkey detox at my parents' house, which I shouldn't have done. I've had seizures in the past, but it worked and I was sober. And then it was a beautiful summer and I went out and I thought, I'll just get myself a little quarter bottle of vodka and that'll be the last. I'll send myself off. Yeah, what's the worst that can happen, Abby? And then I was right back to the circus. Do you know what I mean? Off to the circus, off the races, and that went on again for another month or two until it was a few days before the 19th of August, which is my sober date, and I was in and out of Nobles Hospital over here. They were trying to detox me. well, they were trying to give me Librium, but my when they were breathalyzing me, it wasn't going down because I was nipping over to the shop and getting a little like taster bottle of wine and down in that, and then going back and sitting. They would come out, breathalyze me, and go, "We can't work out why this is not going out." I was like, I'm baffled. I'm baffled.
Absolutely no
Yeah,
idea.
I'm a medical marvel here, but it was because whether it was the fear of the withdrawal or the actual withdrawal, but I was like, I'm waiting too long in this waiting room. I've got to go over there. And I was going over to the shop, and I don't think I had any money, but they basically had this old school credit card machine where you could just, it was like they're not going to take it from my account for days. So I could just go over and spend as much as possible. And I was just getting these bottles of wine. Anyway, they gave me a list. They gave me this note that said, like to parents or whatever, you have to give Jimmy 40 ml of vodka 8 times a day. It's like an old school tapering method. And so I went home. My parents had to go and buy me some vodka, which I was like, yeah,
They would have hated that.
they would have hated that, but they bought me Smirnoff. I mean, I was drinking like the cheapest of the cheap. I was
The
drinking like
Krakow stuff or whatever it
yeah,
was called.
Grant's vodka, which is weirdly, I think Grant's or Glen's is made in Glasgow. Like, how do they? Do you know what I mean? It's like this weird vodka. Anyway, so that my mum had this little shot glass that she'd put nail polish on to measure out the 40 mil, and but it wasn't enough, Abby. It really wasn't enough for what I was going through at that point. So I then went to the shop and got some more. And my mum was like, "No, this is not happening." Phoned up drugs and alcohol team. They got me in the hospital, got me some Librium to go on, and I stayed in for I think 2 or 3 days. And I just said to myself, as soon as I started feeling better, I was like, "This is it. If I'm gonna do everything and anything I can to get sober and stay sober because I'm pushing everyone away. I'm destroying any relationship I've had. I'm not like, what am I to this world? Do you know what I mean? I'm not creating anything. I'm not doing anything. So I'm just this horrible drunk at this point, And I was like, this is not who I want to be or who I am.
Yeah.
So I started going to Motivates, our local addiction charity over here that I now work as a peer mentor. I was doing CA, NA, AA, SMART. I was doing online meetings with my old rehab place. I was going because it was COVID. I could go to Idaho or Ohio or Florida, and I was doing meetings online there on Zoom.
Oh yeah.
It was great. I was just going around all these different places. I think I did a few in Australia. I weirdly went on to a French one and then was like, oh no, I can't speak French. What am I doing here? Yeah. So that was 1,971 days ago, and it's been kind of. I hope that's been in. I know it's not as much of a nutshell as you'd like, but it's.
They're always quite big nutshells when you're trying to talk about your drinking career of like 30 plus years, right? It's hard to get it into like a short section. It's
Exactly.
But that's the whole point. That's the whole point. It's not. I mean, it's a huge journey, right?
Yeah.
So So being in rehab. So the 19th of August, were you in rehab then as well? So
no, so rehab was from March 13th
was
of
during
March.
the first lockdown?
During the lockdown, so it was just for 28 days, and then I kind of relapsed after that, and I'd got myself a little flat, and I was saying hello to the neighbours, but it was all isolated and all that. But there was anyone could do. I was drinking. My parents knew I was drinking. They knew I was drinking, but I was just like, well, we're in lockdown now. What are you going to do? But it was a pretty miserable time.
Yeah, I think lockdown definitely was, a bit of an issue for a lot of people, really, because there was just nothing else to do. It was just you didn't have any responsibility because you didn't have to go to work. You were stuck with your family all day, which can lead a lot of people to drinking. So I know I was living with my ex-husband and the kids, and we owned a couple of restaurants, and so we used to go down to the restaurant while it was shut and just fill up milk bottles full of cider from the tap, because it was like we weren't selling it, so we were just kind of like, well, we'll just go and fill that up, and we'd come out with our 2-liter bottles of milk, full of plum cider or whatever it was. It was just we just drank continuously like the whole time.
Well, there was a thing where and I think I was sober at this point, but they were talking in the UK and they showed these videos of like all the pubs throwing this beer away because it was going, like really ale stuff. It's going to go out of date, so they had to throw it away. But I was sober by that point, and I was like, well, you know what? It's not a crying shame that they're getting rid of that, because I kind of quite quickly changed into this. We started researching and realizing just how bad it was for me, and
Yeah.
this whole like glamorous life of having a drink and good day, bad day, have a drink, and I quite quickly realized that this is a huge lie that they're feeding us to sell this poison to us. But
Yeah.
yeah, I did. Yeah, as I say, I just kind of threw everything I could into getting sober and making recovery kind of my life, because I had nothing else at that point. A lot of my friends were over in the UK, and I just started going to these meetings and just really kind of embracing the lifestyle, because I wasn't even working at that point. I was living at my parents'. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I wasn't super happy right at the beginning, but I was like, this is what I need to do. And every
Yeah.
time I went into a meeting, and I know meetings aren't for everyone, every time I went into a meeting, I was just buzzing from it. I came away
Yeah.
like going, these people are the same as me, because I'd never felt that connection before. I'd always thought I was the only one that was going through this, which is so weird, because you see it all the time on films and stuff, but you think, yeah, they're not doing what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? It's that listening for the similarities and not the differences. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I was the same. So I was in small town New Zealand, and pretty much the only person that was trying to quit. But
Hmm.
even before I started trying to quit, I definitely knew that I had a drinking problem. I was sort of comparing myself with my friends, and like, why can they just have like one wine with dinner? Like, whereas
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like waiting for the second bottle to come round, and just kind of getting really impatient because they're taking too long on their drinks and things like that. And I just knew that there was a bit of an issue, but I really thought, because my friends seemed to be able to handle it, I thought that I was the only one. And it wasn't until I read, I had a guest on here in the first season, Lotta
Hmm.
Dan. She's a New Zealand author.
Hmm.
And she'd written a book called Mrs. D is Going Without, and
Oh
that
yeah.
was a quit lit book. And I read that, and it's funny. I mean, she's a very funny lady. I read that, and I just really all of a sudden I was just like, holy shit, like her
Mm.
stories are very much like mine. Like, maybe I'm not the only person. And it was like an actual, like a light bulb moment. Like, maybe I'm
Yeah.
not the only person that feels like this. And that's when I started looking into it more, and learning about the sober community online. And, it's just like, holy shit, other people feel like
Ah,
this. It's
so
crazy that
many.
you think that you're the only one, right?
It's so bizarre, but that's what it does, because it gets you. It's a disease of isolation, and it gets you on its own, and
Mm.
it wants you on its own. Funnily, you're saying that about Quitlet. I must have been about 26, 25, 26 when I was living in Cambridge, and good friend and colleague of mine handed me this book one morning, and it was called A Million Little Pieces by James Fry. I don't know if you've heard of or read that one.
No, I haven't.
They
No.
they they made a film of it 2 years ago. It's a great book. He did get so he was on Oprah's kind of like bestsellers list and all that, and
Okay.
then it turned out that some of it was fabricated. Now the basic story was there, that it basically starts off and he's on his way to rehab, and then it's his whole time in rehab and all that. Now it's a great book, whether some of it's fabricated or not. The majority of it's
Mm.
real, but it's this amazing book about his struggle through rehab and then subsequent recovery and all of that. And this colleague had given me this book, and I read it and went, "Oh yeah, it's a really good book, thanks." And I didn't like. She was telling me something. She was obviously saying, like, "I think you've
Mm.
got a drink problem," but I was
Yeah.
just so. And she never followed it up. She just went, "All right, okay, he's not taking that kind of
Yeah. He's not
advice.
ready.
He's not ready. He's not
Yeah.
done it." And yeah, maybe, like I've not spoken to her since, but I think she was definitely trying to tell me something at the time with
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
book. Because she could have given me a number of books, but that one in particular was. But it's a great book. I've read it a number of times since then. So
Yeah, no, I've
yeah,
not heard of
yeah,
it. And
yeah.
I
It's
guess,
good.
like, even if it is, I mean, most things are sort of elaborated on, aren't they? Like, most
Yeah,
stories, you kind of like you bend the truth a little bit to get
of
the good
course.
story, right? So I think as long as the message comes across, and it kind of, obviously you've read it again, and you sort of,
Yeah.
what it's about now. You can sort of like, you get it now because you're ready.
Well, yeah,
Like, you've
exactly,
gone through
exactly.
it. Yeah.
And I recommend it to other people. But I think Oprah, like, eventually had him on her show again to say, like, to basically get him to apologize. And he was a bit
Mm.
like, you know what? Like, he's like, I admit I shouldn't have classed it as a memoir because some of it was embellished and all that. And you could see the guy was like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? Like, I wrote a
Yeah,
story. What I
yeah.
should have called it fiction then, but like I
Or
didn't. I called
based
it a
on a true
memoir.
story.
Something like that,
Yeah,
yeah. But it was
yeah,
like he obviously made it into this interesting, really cool story. I mean, if the whole thing was fabricated, then fair enough. But it wasn't. Like he
yeah.
did live that life, and it helps so many people. And eventually they've made a film of it. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, right.
bizarre.
Yeah, well, that's the main thing. I know
Yeah.
some of my friends say that I've had quite an interesting life, like with
Mm.
things that have happened. I ran away with the circus when I was 17, and I'm always coming out with like little
Wow.
snippets of my life. And my friends are just like, you should totally write a book, but I can't remember most of it because so I would have to embellish a lot, so it wouldn't, I just couldn't do it because I'd have to make up a lot of stuff because I know bits of where I was in the world, but
Yeah.
yes,
Abby,
definitely.
it's funny you say that because I'm kind of in the process. Well, I've been in the process of writing a book since like day one in rehab. Like I got this job, they gave you this like workbook, and I started writing down stuff and all that. So I've done about 20,000 words in it, but
Oh
like
wow.
yeah, so it's quite a good headway in. But I'm the same as you. There's things when I sit down and I'm trying to remember places, people, things, and I'm like, oh, when did that happen? And I suppose maybe I have to go round and speak to all my friends and go, what actually happened? Do you know what I mean? What
Yeah,
was what
yeah,
was going on that time? And I will
yeah,
do
yeah,
it, but it's just yeah, I'm like,
yeah.
what happened that night? And then I'll start leading down a little path, and I'll be like, oh shit, that happened as well. Like I'd forgotten about that. It's
Yeah, I
like, yeah,
can't write about
okay.
that bit.
Can't write about that bit. Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it. Although I
Yeah.
think sometimes I maybe kind of, I don't hold back on podcasts, but there's certain things I don't say. But I'm thinking, do you know what? If I put it in book and then it's like once it's published, then my family and friends can read it, and I'm like, well, it's done. Do you know what I mean? And we're
Yeah.
not talking nefarious stuff or anything like that. And my wife now, she knows everything, so it's not. I don't have big dark secrets, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
sometimes you're like you don't want to just put it out there on pod like my mum especially, like there's going to be things that maybe she doesn't want to hear, but if it's written down and it's out there, it's like, okay, you know what I mean. My mum listens to the podcast and she always goes, oh well, I didn't know that you did that, and my heart breaks, and I'm like, yeah mum, my life is good now though, don't worry,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah, yeah.
most important thing for me as well, is get my family back. Like we used to live all over the country, and I'd maybe live like the closest I maybe lived to my parents at one point through my life was like an hour away. So I
Hmm.
would see them, but not that often. They literally live 10 minutes down the road now. So
Yeah, that's cool.
they
Yeah.
they'd moved over here in 2019, and it's just yeah, it's amazing. Family's like so important to me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it is. I'm an only child, and both my parents live over in the UK still, so
Uh,
it's pretty hard. And I think more so since COVID, that just made me realize really how far away from my mum and dad I was,
yeah.
and it's kind of been a bit harder the last few. And I've left my marriage and stuff, so it's all kind of I feel very far away from them these days.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Would they not want
yeah.
to retire over there to the sunshine?
No, my dad lives on a barge on a canal boat,
Oh,
and I think
nice.
he's snowed in at the moment. He can't even move his boat because it's frozen. The water's frozen over. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere
it's
in I don't know, somewhere Shropshire maybe or somewhere
yeah,
like
well,
that.
the south, they seem to be like they had the snow last week, and we got a bit of a snow day here. But like the last couple of days, like the south of England seems to have had this mad kind of snowstorm. I don't know, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, it is crazy. No, I'll keep the sunshine for now. Plus,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like lovely having your parents 10 minutes down the road, but I honestly don't know if I could handle that.
yeah. I
Not
know,
having
I
been
know
on
what
the
you
other
mean.
side of the world for so long.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, it's all
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, so was there a moment when you were in rehab, like obviously, did rehab change your perception of like or thought about what you needed to do, or obviously you relapsed after rehab, but then you kind of it was only a few months later and then you sort of had your sober date, but was there something that really shifted for you when you were at rehab where you were just like that's clicked?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. It was. I don't think I realized. I don't think I knew how dangerous alcohol was. Like I knew smoking. I'd started smoking again when I was in rehab, and I used to vape, and but I'd always smoked, but then I gave that up because I knew the dangers of smoking, but I didn't know the dangers of alcohol, like because that's not widespread. And I
Yeah.
started learning that in rehab. Excuse me. I also just started learning like the 12 steps, the kind of smart, tools as well, like play the tape forward, things like that. And it was we also did meditation and a bit of breath work in there. So not only was it tools that I was help getting to kind of help me combat my alcoholism, but it was also just giving me tools for living a better life,
Yeah.
And I think that's what was key for me. It was like these things aren't just for because I think what I'd seen in AA when I'd gone to a few AAs in the past, I saw like, and I'm not. There's no offense to AA or anything like that, or 12 steps, or it was possibly just the meeting that I went into, and it just seemed like this grey and miserable world of people going, "I'm so and so, and I'm an alcoholic or I'm an addict," and I was like, and they just all seemed miserable. And I was like, what
Mm.
the fuck? Is this what I've got to look forward to if I'm going to get
Yeah, yeah.
sober? But then I realized that that was just some kind of weird little place in time that wasn't the true kind of representation of sobriety because is it buggery? Do you know what I mean? It's like I've never been happier in my life since getting into recovery. But that was kind of like really forefronted in rehab. I saw these people, I saw these counselors that were all in recovery themselves, like some 6 years, some 10 years, some a couple of years, and still got really good friends that were the counselors. I've kept in touch with them,
Yeah.
and they were saying, this is just how life can be for you now. Like that's the miserable side. This is where life is at, and it's a good place to be. You don't
Yeah.
need those alcohol and drugs. And that was kind of, yeah, a real big turning point. Like as I say, it didn't get me sober that time. It got me sober for 55 days, but then a relapse. But it set the groundwork, if
Mm.
that makes sense. So it sent
Yeah.
these messages and started building. The seeds were there, and I started growing from them.
Yeah.
Because I think I knew at that point, maybe I'd known for about a year, but I knew I needed to get sober. I'd never really known that in the past. Like I knew that I would do it for a while and maybe I'll do it for 6 months. And because I was always a bit of an avid runner and I would do stints of like, I did a couple of marathons and half marathons and things. So I would do that. And then I would be like, but some of the times I was drinking while I was doing that, not actually on the runs, maybe in the training runs, but I kind of thought I need to get sober but only for a short period of time, like a circuit breaker or whatever.
Yeah.
But then, like a year before I did get sober, I was like, nah, this is not serving me anything, so I need to do something about it. And I think I just had to push it right to the limits. I mean, I was definitely rock bottom kind
Yeah.
of type, and I think I just kept on hitting rock bottom. I think I must have had about three or four. And I was like, really? Can it get worse than this? And I guess the universe was just saying to me, like, yeah, it can get worse unless you do something about this. Because every time it was like deeper and deeper. So I was just like, right, okay, held my hands up. And I'm not religious, but my higher power at the time when I did go to NA, and that was the universe. And I was like, right, I'm done now. Please, kind of help me. And
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that was
I
all
think.
seeds that I'd learned from rehab. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I was kind of almost the same. I mean, I tried to give up just after my 40th birthday, and obviously I'd been sort of thinking that I had a bit of a drinking problem beforehand, but not really thinking about it too seriously. And then had my 40th, got absolutely wasted for that. And then a
yeah.
few days later, I was like, right, I'm going to do a 90-day challenge through that 1 year no beer that used to be on Facebook. And
Oh yeah,
yeah, and I got to like, I was struggling by day 4. And I always say that that's when I realized that I had a drinking problem, because before that I just thought, it was just possibly in the back of my head that I might be drinking too much, but I literally couldn't stop. Like I couldn't yeah, I couldn't stop. So I was
yeah,
just like, holy
yeah.
shit. And then I kind of like had a bit of a stint of trying and giving up. And then later on that year in the November, my daughter told me that she didn't like the sound of my voice when I drank.
Oh,
And I got drunk that night and then filmed myself talking about it and asking for help, and I posted it on Facebook, and then I toddled off to bed, and I woke up in the morning and I had all these messages, and I was like, shit, what have I done? And I looked, and I'd posted this video, and everyone was like, we're here, like, we're here for you, like, we'll support you. And that's when I learned about the power of the social, like the sober community online, you know, because I was just like, holy shit, all of these people are like cheering me on, you know. But
Do you remember doing the video?
not really. No, I remember
No.
filming it, but I don't remember posting it.
Yeah. Do you know
No,
Kate?
it
Do you
wasn't.
know Kate Taylor?
What's that?
Do you know Kate Taylor? So she
Yeah.
did a
Because
similar
she did the
thing, but I
same
don't
thing.
think she's ever posted it because it was. I mean, I think it's about a good 10-minute long video, but yeah, she's never. She's posted bits of it, but not the
She's
full
posted
thing.
bits of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because she
We
was
talked
just.
about. She was my first ever guest on here, and we
She
talked
was
about
my
that.
second
Yeah,
guest on mine. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
She's a
it's
legend,
awesome.
eh?
Oh,
But
so legend, yeah.
But yeah, but it took me 4 years of trying. So from that
Mm,
initial April when I turned 40, you know, I gave up in the March 2020, so that was 2018, gave up March 2022. 6 months before that, I listened on audiobook to Alcohol Explained by William Porter,
yeah,
and I just started learning about the scientific facts. And it wasn't until then that, I mean, I always say that that was a game changer for me, but it still wasn't enough. It still took another 6 months, but that was when I started learning about the
yeah,
stuff that you can't unlearn, the scary stuff, you know, like
yeah,
this is
yeah,
happening to your body, and this is why this happens, and this is why you're
yeah,
blacking out. And I was like, holy shit.
yeah.
And that was what scared me enough. And then 6 months later I quit for good. But it sometimes it's not immediate, right? It's you still got a little bit more
Yeah, you
of
still
your
got
own
to.
thing to do.
I think you've got a little bit of finding out to do, and there's some people that still. I think I know people that are like 3 years trying to do it and keep going back out, and I'm like, why do you still think that you've got something to prove out there? It's going to be
Mm,
the same every time you've done it. Like you and me, we
mm,
did it a couple of times, 6 months, a year, and then we were like, nah, do you know what? There's nothing for me out there. But there's some people that just seem to not be able to get that, and it's
yeah,
like how many times do you need to learn that you cannot do this anymore?
yeah,
And I'm not talking about like middle of the road grey area drinkers. Even them, it's like if you're like you're saying, if you can't do 4 days, or if you try and do dry January and you're struggling with it, then you've got a problem,
yeah,
plain and
yeah,
simple. If you can't give something up for 40 days, if you're white knuckling it to February, you need to just stop that, plain
yeah,
and simple,
yeah.
because nobody should have a problem giving something up for 40 days unless they're got a little bit of an addiction to it. Yeah. And it's a
Mm.
drug, let's be honest. There's no shame in being addicted to something that's addictive, you know?
Yeah, but there is though that's the problem though. There is like in society, it is
Yeah.
seen as a problem. Like you know, you're always told to drink responsibly and all this kind of stuff, and isn't everybody having a great time on the adverts? And you know, it's all just fun and laughter on all the adverts and stuff. But as soon as you have a problem with it, everybody backs off, and it's like you're the one with the problem, even though
Yeah.
you know. And it's just that's what I mean. That's that shame is what stops a lot of people from getting help. I think because
Yeah.
they just won't talk about it because it's again it goes back to that sort of feeling like you're the only one, and it's
Yeah.
like no, we've all been there. Like we've all
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
like that,
We've all
but
dealt.
you know, yeah,
I
yeah,
remember there was a teacher that came into the meetings, and he was like 3-4 years sober, so he was way ahead of me at that time, and but he didn't. He was definitely in the anonymous. So at that point, I was like screaming it from the hilltop, still am, but he was very much under the kind of anonymous mantra, and I was like, I was interested in it. I wasn't like trying to oust him or anything. He was a teacher, a primary school teacher, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But it's like when I started thinking about it, I was like, well, this guy is 4 years sober. He is never going to come home from work. If the kids have given him a hard day or a good day, crack open that bottle of wine. He's never going to go in hungover. And yet he doesn't want the teachers and mothers in his school or fathers to know that he's an ex-alcoholic, whereas a lot of the other teachers are probably going home and sinking a bottle of wine because the
mm,
little brats have been an absolute nuisance. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
he's the more kind of dependable and reliable teacher there, and yet
yeah,
he's keeping it a secret. But it's like,
yeah,
whereas all the other ones, it's like that's the normal thing that they're having a drink every night because they've had a good day, bad day. It's just
yeah,
this
yeah,
weird
yeah,
mentality
yeah.
of
No,
the
it is.
society we live in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's it is, and I think that's hard to like get the message across to a lot of people too, isn't it?
Oh,
That
yeah, yeah,
that's, I mean, that's why they always say, shout it from the rooftops because you never know who's listening.
yeah.
Even if you just change one person's life, like that's literally you've changed somebody's life. Like how cool is that?
Oh,
It's
absolutely, absolutely. The
incredible.
more, and I think attitudes are changing. Definitely in the 5 years that I've been sober, people are becoming a little bit more sober curious. They're definitely not judging you as much for being, an ex-drinker or whatever. They're not going, oh my God, well, was it a problem? It's like, oh, right, okay. Because loads of people are stopping drinking now, not just
Mm,
for issues or whatever. They just want a healthier life because they're starting to learn that it isn't good for you. And I
mm.
think I think in the next couple of years we're going to see labels on bottles like, is it Australia? I think Ireland, Canada.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
UK will be the last behind everyone. But I'm hoping, like, I keep talking about this. I need to go and speak to our MHKs, which are like our members of our own parliament over here, to start getting labels on bottles here. Like, I'm not saying to people stop drinking. Like, I'm not saying let's take their booze away from them. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying let's educate them and let them know
yeah,
what they're actually putting in themselves because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a poison.
That's a huge amount of the work that I do is actually it's giving people the option, but coming from an informed standpoint. It's
Exactly.
because so
Yeah.
many people don't know about the cancers and the like all the
Yeah.
yeah. It's crazy because yeah, obviously the big alcohol companies just don't want to mention that, do they?
Well, they don't, because they lose a massive amount of money. But it's like, smoking. Smoking's lasted a long, long time since they put pictures and labels on the
Mm,
packets. I mean, when I was smoking, there was labels on it, and I was like, okay, I'm informed, I know what I'm doing, but I'm still going to do it. But I'm going to give up at some point, which I did. But I think, I don't know any smokers now. I hardly ever
mm,
see smokers outside a shop or a bar or
yeah,
whatever. There's a lot of vapors, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
smoking is definitely on its way out because people are like, yeah, why are we doing this to ourselves still?
yeah,
You might see
yeah.
the old guy with a little rollie outside the pub, but that's it. You don't really see, and I was one of them. But I think alcohol will eventually go the same way. The younger crowd,
They're not bothered.
they're not
Yeah, yeah,
bothered.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. A,
yeah. I
because it's bad
actually
for their health, and where's my hand? A, because it's bad for their health, and B, because they don't want to get out of control and have someone film them, and then it be
yeah.
all over WhatsApp.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely that's a good deterrent because I know like some of the stuff that I'm sure you got up to and I definitely got up to. I'm very,
Yeah.
very lucky that it's not been filmed.
So lucky. I mean, I think there's a few choice pictures, but a still photograph is definitely not a kind of giveaway to what you were doing at the time. It's just a moment in
Yeah.
time. Whereas if there was a
Yeah.
guy out in the field when I was 15 or 16 with a camcorder on his shoulder, I'd be like, what's this guy doing? Like what? I'm gonna go over here. I don't want to be filmed. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. No, it's funny you were saying that about yeah, I mean you don't even over here in New Zealand it's vapors over people that smoke ciggies, but I was behind a car the other day and it was just a little Suzuki Swift and they had a car sticker on the back saying fuck cancer. Um
Ooh.
and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And then both the driver and the passenger both put their arms out and they were both smoking ciggies. And I was just like, the irony of that is just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like, I don't know, like we're keeping it real for it. Well, yeah, fuck cancer because we're gonna get it. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I know. I don't know what
Yeah,
it's very
yeah.
mixed messaging anyway.
Absolutely.
It was very weird.
Very ironic, yeah. Well, not ironic, just weirdly not. I don't know whether they're trying to some kind of humor there, but yeah, yeah, it's mad. But I do think alcohol's kind of the, the big alcohol companies are going to start. I think they're starting to see a shift. I think they're pushing it. I had Anna Donaghy on the podcast, and she used to work for a advertising company down in
Mhm.
London, and they used to, their eyes would ka-ching when they got an big alcohol contract. And she said she sat in rooms like with board members and all that, and big execs of alcohol firms, basically saying where we're going to get growth in the next couple of years is by targeting the underagers,
Yeah,
because
right.
the people like you and me that were, for want of a better word, alcoholics, they're not worried about us because that's their biggest customer. The ones that are like problematic drinkers, they're their biggest customers, so they don't need to worry about them because they're already hooked on it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a few like you and me that are coming away from that. That's fine. They're not worried about us because the majority are still hooked on it. They kind of, you know, younger and middle-aged ones, they're fine. They're kind of, you know, doing their weekend drinking, binging and all that. That's cool. They're taken care of. They're going to get hooked eventually. But it's the ones that don't drink that we need to target. And it's like any business, you know, of course you need growth in your business, but when they're targeting a poison at youngsters and underagers, it's just pure evil in my mind. You know, and Anna does say she's definitely got regrets on doing those marketing and advertising campaigns, but you know, she feels like she's making amends now. But it's like it still goes on now, you know, these adverts, because like it took a long time for tobacco to stop being advertised, you know. They had to bring it down gently. You weren't allowed to have people in the advert and then this and that. Whereas alcohol still completely self-regulates. They're allowed to have people on a beach looking glamorous with a Bacardi and all that. And it's like, of course that's selling. And then there's another thing called pinking drinks, which is, you know, all the gin that's come out. It's like, let's make it pink, and that's going to get the mummy wine culture. And it's pure evil in my mind.
Yeah, I've read about that. Like when the, you know, beer sales plateaued, they were like, what's next? Who's our next target? And it was like, let's make everything pink and target the females, you know, and it worked. It did. I mean, I fully bought into the mummy wine culture. I just thought that's what I deserved at the end of the day with the kids, you know, and
because you've been told that that's what you deserve. And then I don't know, maybe in the last 15 years, the amount of different gins that have come on. It used to be Bombay, Sapphire, London and Gordon, and that was it. And now it's like, oh, and then you could get some slow gins. But now it's like, there's thousands, there's gin bars. And it was like, what did it used to be? It was Mother's Ruin, wasn't it? So
Ruin,
Mother's Ruin. Yeah.
I used to drink a red wine called Mother's Ruin, actually, which at the time I thought was delicious, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not that. Yeah.
It's not, no. So so these days, so you're living in the Isle of Man.
Living in the Isle of Man.
Married. You're doing so congratulations on your wedding.
Thank you.
I listened to your podcast with Jen interviewing you earlier on today, actually. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So what do you so you're doing a challenge. I saw that you were doing a run every day for January.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's all right. Like I did obviously first. Well, I've done every day so far. I haven't done today's yet. I will do that after this. But my plan is, because I'm a gardener, I'm doing quite, you know, active work all day, kind of heavy lifting and weeding and whatever. And it's still dark here in the mornings when I'm going to work. So my plan was to go out in the mornings and do that before work, because by the time I get home, I'm going to be shattered and all that. So I think I did Monday, Tuesday before work. And then Wednesday came along and it was absolutely howling outside. And I was like, right, I'm going to do it after work today. So I've actually been quite good at doing it after work. So I think I've done 4 or 5Ks, a couple of 2 miles, a couple of 1 milers. So yeah, we're only on day 10 now anyway. So yeah. But it's going well. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of just, as I say, the minimum I have to do is a mile. But I'd like to do some bigger ones at the weekends and things as well.
Yeah.
The thing with me is, when I've got like an event to look forward to, I start training and I do it really well. And then once that's finished, I'm kind of like, and then I just take my running shoes off and hang them up. So I haven't really run since October. But actually doing what I do, I went back out and I did a mile on New Year's Day. And then on the 2nd, I went and did a 5K. And I did it it wasn't quite sub 30, but you know what I mean? I did the whole thing and I didn't, you know, stop for a walk or a breather or whatever. So I was like, okay, my fitness levels are still there.
Yeah.
Had I been drinking and smoking in the past, it took me, I think, I was running, it would take me about 2 months to work up to a decent fitness level, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely in a fitter state than, you know, when I was younger.
Do you find that with the, like, obviously like getting out and about in nature and stuff like that, that's like quite something that you sort of promote quite a lot, right? On your
I mean, over
is that
here,
just like a mental health thing, or it's like a release for you, like a healthy release, instead of like you would have, or a coping mechanism, like you would have gone to drinking and now you're doing like getting out into nature? Or
Yeah, I mean, all of those things. I think for me at the beginning, it was that getting the fresh air, getting the health back when I was in the early days of recovery. So a few of us from the meetings would start going out doing hiking. So it was definitely just to get out, especially because I think we were in a lot of mini lockdowns and things like that. So it was one of the only times a lot of us could kind of meet up as long as we were distanced. We weren't in rooms. We could do that. So there was that as well. And I've always loved kind of hiking and going out in nature. Although when I was drinking, I would have a bottle of dark rum with me. So there's a picture of me climbing up Snowdon with a bottle, not like a hip flask or anything, like a full liter bottle of dark rum, and that was just mine. It was like, it was so cringe, Abby. But I was thinking, well, I'm out in nature and I'm doing this, and people take a little hip flask and they do what they call it, like topping off the mountain or whatever, and that's
Yeah.
fine. They're talking like a thimble's full, whereas I'm almost leathered by the time I get to the top. Yeah, yeah, it's like just swinging this in the middle of the trail, but. Yeah, it's definitely, we try and get out as often as we can with the kids as well, even if it's just a walk down to the beach, because we live quite close to a little rocky beach here.
Yeah.
It's not like Bondi Beach or anything, but it's just nice to get out, do a little circle with the kids, because I'm a stepfather to three kids, 15, 13 and 9. And it's just, yeah, whenever we can, we'll get outside and do it. Like this afternoon, we're going to go down the beach, the main beach in Port Erin. There's a little cafe down there. Like it's freezing, but we'll get wrapped up and we'll go down, sit on the beach and just enjoy it, because it is sunny now. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
it's definitely a mental health thing. It's a health and well-being thing. It's yeah, just there's so many things that you can do that don't involve drinking.
Mm.
And I know I used to incorporate those things. I would get drinking involved with it, but you don't have to, and I think
Yeah.
that's the kind of message as well. Like, there's so many other things. Because a lot of people said to me when I got sober, like, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, well, everything else. The world's my oyster now.
Yeah.
I can do everything else. I'm not thinking about where my next drinks come from. Like, how can I manipulate what we're doing at the weekend to go and get food in a pub rather than a cafe? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was all encompassing, and
Yeah.
and it's tiring, it's exhausting.
It is. It's like a huge weight gets lifted when you realize that you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not an option. So,
Not an
yeah.
option. I remember we were in a thing, it was a couple of years ago, and it was in a bar, and there was a thing going on, and we were there for a while, and it got to kind of last orders, and I could see the people, almost the panic going up, getting the last orders in, and it's like,
Mm.
well, you're either going home or, you should have got some. Well, I would have got wine before I went home anyway. But do you know what I mean? It was just that panic in there. It's like the last orders. It's like, no, it's like 11, 12 o'clock at night and it's time to go home. Why are you
Yeah.
getting in a few more drinks for the road? And they'd
Yeah.
be getting like a whole big round in. And it's like, oh, I just feel sorry for the
Yeah.
bar staff that
Or a
go,
couple of
oh,
drinks for themselves as well. You just go,
oh
oh,
no,
get two,
yeah,
get
yeah.
two.
Get
You
two,
know?
two glasses of wine, two beers, two vodka shots, and all
Yeah.
that. And it's like, Jesus Christ. It's
Yeah.
not one for the road, it's one for the ditch, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But then it's
Yeah.
probably exactly what I mean. It's funny when you look back on it and you see people observe people now, but it's exactly what we would have been doing too.
Oh no,
Right?
exactly. And I don't want to be, kind of a hypocrite and say that, and I'm not judging them. I just see, like, I keep saying this. I see there's these people that I see quite regularly in our local Tesco's here, and I see them. They're going up to the till before me, and they're not super old. They're probably a lot younger than they look, but they've got their shopping trolley filled with booze, and it's like they're not going home for a party. They're going home to basically be drinking that themselves.
Mm.
And I feel like I'm not judging them. I just want to go up and give them a big hug and say, do you know
Yeah.
what? There's a way out of this. That's the
Mm.
thing. There is hope for you, and but I'm not going to start doing that. Just
Yeah.
randomly hugging strangers
Exactly
and
like
going,
Tesco's.
yes, I'll probably crack the bottle
It's
over
the
my head.
preacher man.
Yeah, the preacher man. He doesn't know where. Yeah, so yeah, there was another guy in the shop the other day, and he was like, I don't know whether they'd robbed something or whatever. They looked a bit jakey, but he was kind of rushing through, and he kind of bumped into me, and I kind of turned around and he went, oh, so sorry, mate. And then I looked at his rucksack, and the back the zip was way down, and his bottle of like Scrumpy, or what was it, White Lightning cider, was kind of falling out. And I just tapped him on the shoulder before he ran off, and I went, mate, your bag. And he went, oh, thank you. And it was like, oh, Do you know what I mean? It's like Frosty Jack cider or something, which is like 2 quid. I don't know. But,
Yeah.
that's their life. That's what they're doing,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, until you're ready, and you and me have both experienced this. Until you're ready, nobody can tell you to stop or tell you
Oh,
to, give you any advice, because you're just like, shut up. Like, yeah,
shut
I
up.
wouldn't take any advice from anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was fine. I was fine until I wasn't, I was like, nah, I'm
Yeah.
fine. I know what I'm doing. I'm all right, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, so true. So true.
Yeah. What do you think's been the hardest thing for you since you got sober?
The hardest thing, I think building up trust was one of the hardest things with my family. That was definitely, because they'd given me so many chances in the past, and I
Mm.
think I'd kind of used them all up, and it was, my mum and dad, yeah, like they obviously had me living with them. They hadn't kicked me out, but I think building up trust with my brother, that's taken a long, long time. Just because all of the stuff he did for me, and then I just obviously was throwing it back in his face.
Yeah.
And then I think socializing as well. Right at the beginning, when I was still steeped in the meetings and doing that, I had my little social crowd and that, and we did things together. But then I kind of not distance myself from them. I just thought, right, I'd need to move on to like phase 2 of my recovery. So I wasn't going to the meetings as much. And I think then the social aspect, like I went on Tinder and Plenty of Fish and all that kind of stuff. And I did go on a few dates and stuff, but it was just kind of, I was like, I'm not ready for this. This isn't,
Mhm.
this isn't where I'm at in my recovery yet.
Yeah.
So I kind of took myself off all of those. And I was in some social circles with my photography and markets that I was doing. And then yeah, one day, like in 2023, I bumped into Jen. We'd met like I think 6 months previous, but she was going through some, relationship breakdowns and things like that, and I was going through mine. So it wasn't the right time, but then when we did, it was perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
And we I had a friend kind of give me all the details for her, and then I was like, okay, so I messaged her on Facebook, and it kind of went from there. But it was, yeah, I like that I think was just at the right time. Like as I said previously, socializing and doing that kind of thing was not that it was difficult, but I wasn't ready for it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It wasn't the right time for me.
Yeah.
So it did. I don't think I knew it wasn't the right time or whatever, but I was kind of like, what's going to happen in my life? Because I feel like I'm ready, but how am I going to meet someone? Because I'd come off all of those things and I was like, how am I going to do this organically? So,
Mm.
but then it just kind of happened. The universe kind of,
Yeah.
conspired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That gives me
Yeah.
hope, because I've been a bit of a hermit the last. Well, I've been down here. I left my marriage 3 years ago. It's coming up 3 years ago, and yeah, I've been very sort of healing myself, and I'll
Yeah.
just hide away and just look after myself for a bit, and just hang out with my girls and just make sure that they're all right and stuff. And then I'm always kind of like, I'm never going to meet anybody unless they're at the supermarket or at my gym, or they come round to my house to fix something in
Yeah.
my house.
Yeah.
That's the only
Yeah.
way I'm going to meet anybody. So
Yeah.
yeah, it hasn't happened yet, but I've made 2026 as the year when I get out more and just become a
Yeah.
little bit more of a social.
Well, that was the
Yeah.
same. I lived in that cottage I lived in a little thatched cottage up in the hills here, and it was great for me. I had my 2 cats, and like I did have friends come and visit me and things like that, but I was happy just in my own space, and I was learning to be okay with myself. That was the
Mm.
main part of my recovery, I think, because I think a lot
Yeah.
of people in this life, they want constant distractions because they're not able to just sit with themselves. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like they
Yeah.
need their phones, they need their TVs, like reading a book and all that. And I was just like, do you know what? I even got rid of my TV up there. I was like, yeah, I've got a laptop if I want to watch a film or something, but I don't
Mm.
want the TV. So it was just learning to be a bit. I know it sounds a bit woohoo, but it was like, yeah, just to be a bit more zen and be
Yeah.
comfortable because I wasn't able to sit with myself in the past. That was why I would be drinking.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. No, I think that's right. That's yeah, same as me. Like I needed to learn who I am as a person.
yeah,
Somebody that's like without the drinking, that's been part of my identity for so long, and without a husband who I'd been with for, 20 years, and
yeah.
without, all of these things that have always been with me for the last however long, all of a
Hmm.
sudden I've got none of that. so what am I? Who am I? You know,
Who are
it's
you? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and it's been really cool. Like it's it's exciting to relearn who you are, or like
Of
or
course.
reinvent yourself almost, because I'm totally different to who I was 3 years ago. But it's but yeah, there comes a time, I think, when it's like, okay, I'm ready to venture
Yeah,
out now,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
and see what happens.
yeah.
But yeah, I saw one of your posts. It was a passport photo, and you said that you had to renew your passport when you went to Marrakesh, and then you
Yeah,
realized that your whole passport, you hadn't traveled at all, and how
yeah,
you were just too busy drinking. And it's interesting, eh, like
yeah.
how yeah, it just takes over everything, and you have like all these things, all these dreams that you have, that you might want to go traveling, or you want to buy this and that and that. All of a sudden, it becomes possible when you stop drinking.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was just completely a whole 10-year passport just not utilized at all, you know. And I know
Mm.
when you go to like European countries or whatever, you don't really need to show your passport anymore and they don't get stamped. But I literally hadn't left the country, you know.
Yeah.
I hadn't even been to Ireland, you know, and it was like I don't think in those 10 years, the only time I'd been back to Scotland, because I was living in England, the only time I'd been back to Scotland in those 10 years was when we drove to the border one year and I crossed over the border. I literally walked over and then came back. So I hadn't even really been in Scotland, you know. So I'd literally been in England for 10 years, which is just madness, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But yeah,
crazy.
as you say, just my aspirations and kind of, you know, well, we'll save up for this. It wasn't about saving up for anything because that money was all just gone. I was always
Mm.
just broke, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just thinking back, like touch wood. I'm so lucky that, yeah, you know, as I say, there's younger people than me and people my age that are drinking probably less than I was, and they haven't been as lucky with the kind of health situation.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is
Yeah.
all I'm
No.
trying to get across on my podcast and when I come on other people's podcasts. Like, if you think it's causing you a problem, then it most likely is. And
Yeah.
why would you continue to do something that's causing you damage? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's madness.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. For someone that's listening to this thinking that maybe it's a bit too late for them, what would you say?
It's never too late. Never too late at all. I mean, even, you know, even if they are, how can I put this? Like, you know, being told by the doctors and this, that, and the other, you've not got long for this, that can be proved wrong. You know, I'm not saying it is going to be in every case, of course not. But what I'm going to say to you is the last little time that you might have left, do it sober. Like, prove
Mm.
to your family that this is not who you are as a person because it's a character changing drug. You know, it changes people. And, you know, family and loved ones don't want to see someone going through their last days with, you know, being a belligerent drunk. So yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think it is ever too late. If someone's, you know, like I was 40 when I got sober, and you know, a lot of people might think that that's kind of too late. Did I wish I'd done it earlier? Probably not, because I wouldn't have been the person that I am now, you know.
Mm.
And I know people in their 50s and 60s and 70s that are doing it, you know. And even if it is just a kind of you're a grey area drinker, stop it. You know, Lulu stopped. You know, Lulu the singer,
Yeah.
the Scottish singer. She gave up when she was 64, I think, and she's now 70 odds. And she's like, this has been the best like couple of years of her life since she got sober because she's
Yeah.
just got more clarity, more present with friends and family. Yeah, just and obviously she's feeling better because it just makes you sluggish and have less clarity. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's never too late to stop it. Of course not. Yeah,
Yeah.
the sooner
Yeah.
the
No,
better.
that's
And
cool.
I think people will use that as an excuse to go, oh well, you know, because there's always that great one like I'll do it next week or I'll do it in February or I'll do it in March. It's like no, just do it today.
Do
You
it
know,
now.
do it
Yeah.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because before you
Yeah.
know it, then you've got a day, and then you've got 2 days, whereas you wouldn't have done that, and then you've got a
Mm.
week, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Where can people find you online?
So Instagram's pretty much my home. So it's recovery underscore Jimmy at recovery underscore Jimmy. I'm on TikTok. I think it's recovery dot Jimmy. I've only just got on TikTok. I'm a bit bit wary of it. I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I don't.
I'm a bit like, but
I
I find
post
the
my
al
my podcast things, and then that's about as much as I do. I think I've got 15
yeah.
followers.
Well, exactly. I mean, I'm kind of like, I don't really know. But then I find the algorithm on Instagram being a bit weird that some people are saying that they
Mm,
haven't seen my posts, and I'm like, what? But it's all a bit strange. Um,
yeah,
they can also get me on my podcast, which is After Hours with Jimmy Thistle on Spotify, Apple, all the big ones.
yeah.
I don't know if anyone listens to podcasts on Audible, but I see I'm on there as well. And
Oh yeah,
I mean, I listen to Audible for audiobooks, but I
audiobook.
don't listen to podcasts on there. So yeah,
No, I don't either. But yeah, I'll have to see whether I'm on there too. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's
that's cool. All right,
interesting.
well, I'll put all your contact details on the show notes as well. So
Thank you.
but thank you so much for the chat today, Jimmy. It's been really cool chatting to you.
No, I've absolutely loved it, Abby. It's been great getting to know you as well. And yeah, hopefully we can do a podcast swap and you can come on mine as well. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I'd love
love
that. I'd
that.
love that. Yeah, it'd be really
Yeah,
cool. So, all right.
cool.
Well, you have a beautiful. What day is it today? Saturday.
It's
It's Saturday, isn't
Saturday
it?
today. Well, you're
Yeah,
heading
I'm
into
about to turn into a
Sunday.
pumpkin. It's almost midnight here, so
Yeah, yeah, right. Okay, well, enjoy your Sunday when it comes, and
I
yeah,
will. I
see you
will.
soon.
All right.
All
All
right,
right. I'll speak to you soon. And thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk next week. Thank
cheers,
you.
guys. Cheers,
Cheers,
Abby.
Jimmy.
Bye, bye,
Bye.
bye, bye.